pull up a stool right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, grab that drink. I poured it neat tonight because what we're doing is a post-mortem on what is, without a doubt, history's most hardcore, just absolute hell mode startup.
I'll just wipe down this side of the counter for you while you settle in. And, he's definitely right to start you off with a strong drink for this one.
Oh, absolutely. We're looking at a regime that lasted a mere 38 years. I mean, it burned out like a shooting star, left its founders utterly bankrupt, yet somehow built the exact infrastructure that powered a civilization for the next 1,000 years.
What we are dissecting tonight is really the ultimate case study in being worked to death. It's what the modern internet calls involution, or Neiwan, but taken to a fatal empire collapsing extreme.
Right, and look, if you are not deeply versed in ancient Chinese history, do not worry for a second. You really just need to understand the brutal logic of Silicon Valley.
Which is a pretty fitting lens for this, actually.
It perfectly aligns, because the Sui dynasty, which existed from 581 to 618 AD, it operates exactly like a tech monopoly that achieved total market dominance, completely disrupted the industry, and then spectacularly self-immolated.
It's a masterclass in catastrophic cash flow management and, well, wildly irresponsible market expansion.
Yeah.
We are basically looking at a company that ended centuries of market chaos, only to liquidate itself in less than 4 decades.
Less than 4 decades.
Yeah.
To really get why this startup was so insane, you have to look at the market conditions before they launched. Imagine a completely anarchic, fragmented market.
Right. The Northern and Southern dynasties, period.
Exactly. For roughly 300 years, the territory of China was just a chaotic mess of regional warlords. I mean, think of them as hyper-aggressive regional managers, constantly battling for market share,
Constantly.
acquiring each other, burning through venture capital, and going bankrupt. It was just endless bloody competition.
In economic terms, it was a completely fractured, total addressable market. You had constant volatility. No single player had the structural integrity or, the capital to achieve a monopoly.
The supply chains were completely shattered.
Exactly.
So enter our bootstrapped founder. The year is 581 AD. A gritty, low-key northern tycoon named Yang Jin.
Historically known as Emperor Wen.
Right, Emperor Wen, he founds the Sui company. And Yang Jin does not mess around with small incremental acquisitions. He executes a textbook, ruthless corporate buyout.
You really did.
By 589 AD, he targets the last major competitor in the south, the Qin regime, and just acquires them in a heavy-handed merger.
Which is an incredibly significant milestone. I mean, that merger officially ends hundreds of years of division.
Just wipes it out.
Yeah, he didn't just capture the largest market share, he effectively became the entire market. The monopoly was established.
He is the undisputed CEO of the Great Unified Group of China. Now, as a CEO, Yang Jin is a fascinating psychological profile. He's the ultimate penny-pinching, frugal, Scrooge-like founder.
Very frugal.
I mean, this guy is running a total monopoly, the most powerful entity on Earth at the time, and he is showing up to the executive suite wearing patched clothes.
It's quite the image.
He hoards cash with an absolute obsession. He taxes efficiently, spends practically nothing on luxury, and stuffs the national warehouses until the grain is literally rotting because they just cannot consume it fast enough.
Well, let me add a little historical context to those warehouses because it wasn't just mindless hoarding.
Oh.
It was brilliant engineering, actually. He built these massive state-run granaries, some of which were underground and scientifically sealed to prevent moisture and pests.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah. He was essentially building the world's most robust data centers, but, for food security. He was storing decades worth of operational runway.
Okay, sure, the granaries were impressive data centers.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm looking at his management style, and I just don't get how a guy wearing rags manages to control a continent-wide monopoly without his VP staging a coup. I mean, how do you keep former warlords in line?
By completely rewriting the corporate org chart. Yang Jin was an operational genius.
Okay, how so?
Well, he recognized that to run a monopoly of that scale, you need flawless middle management. So he implements what is known as the 3 departments and 6 ministries system.
Break that down for me, because 3 departments sounds like standard bureaucratic red tape. How does that stop a warlord from taking over?
It's all about the separation of powers and bottlenecking ambition. Before this, a top minister or a regional warlord could draft a policy, approve their own policy, and then just execute it with their own private army.
A total nightmare for HR.
Exactly. So Yang Zhan split those functions entirely. One department was strictly responsible for drafting policy.
Right.
A completely separate department was responsible for reviewing and auditing that policy. And a third department was responsible for executing it through the 6 ministries.
And those handled the day-to-day stuff.
Right. Things like personnel, revenue, and defense. No single executive had the authority to do all three.
Ah, so he decentralized the internal power while centralizing the authority. He essentially made it impossible for a rogue regional manager to build a fiefdom.
Precisely.
But wait, he still needs to staff these ministries. And from what I understand about ancient empires, you basically got a job because your dad was a duke. Or, because you belong to some elite legacy family.
The old nepotism model.
Right. So how does he get around the old boys network?
He bypasses them entirely by establishing the prototype for the imperial examination system.
Yes, this is my favorite part. This is a pure Silicon Valley disruption move.
It really was revolutionary.
Yang Guinan looks at the legacy aristocrats and says, nope, we're doing blind, algorithmic hiring based strictly on merit. You want to be a mid-level manager, you pass a brutal, standardized written test.
Basically the ancient equivalent of passing a LEET code interview.
Exactly. Total disruption of the elite networking model. But here's where I'm confused. Why did the old money let him do this? Usually, the legacy elites would crush a founder who tries to strip their networking privileges.
That's where the timing of that chaotic 300-year warlord era comes into play.
Ah, right.
The constant bloody warfare had actually severely weakened the old aristocratic families. Their private armies were depleted, their wealth was fractured.
So they were already on the ropes.
Right. Jiang Jin stepped into a power vacuum. The old money just didn't have the leverage to stop him from implementing a meritocratic bureaucracy.
So the timing was perfect. And the result of these operational efficiencies is what historians call the Kaiwang era. The company is incredibly cash-rich.
Very stable.
Society is stable, the population is booming, and the treasury is overflowing. It is the absolute dream scenario. You have zero serious competitors, a streamlined HR department, and bank accounts bursting at the seams.
Which brings up the classic succession problem.
Always does.
You have a massive pile of hoarded capital. The frugal founder retires, or in this case, passes away.
Enter the son, Yang Guan, Emperor Yang of Sui. This guy is, well, he's the exact opposite of his dad.
Night and day.
His dad was a bootstrapper. Yang Guang is a VVIP spendthrift. He looks at this perfectly stable cash-printing monopoly and thinks this is incredibly boring.
He had a very different vision for the empire.
Oh, totally. He refuses to be a caretaker CEO. He wants to be a century disruptor. He wants to fundamentally alter the landscape of the planet.
He was highly ambitious, yes. But, to be fair, he did identify a very real structural problem in the empire.
Right, the logistics. The major pain point of the company was north-south transport. The political and military headquarters are up in the north, but the massive agricultural wealth, the food that pays the employees, is down in the south.
And moving grain over land is a nightmare.
An absolute nightmare. So what does our disruptor CEO do? Instead of standard incremental road upgrades, he decides to forcefully lay down a high-speed fiber optic network right through everyone's front yards.
Meaning he orders the construction of the Grand Canal?
Yeah.
But let's clarify your fiber optic analogy because I think it glosses over the actual physics of what he achieved.
Okay, lay it on me.
Why is water transport the equivalent of high-speed broadband in the ancient world?
Because land transport eats its own profits. Literally.
Yeah.
If you load 1,000 pounds of grain onto wooden carts and use horses to pull them over dirt roads from the south to the north, well, the horses have to eat the grain during the journey.
They consume the payload.
Right. By the time you travel 500 miles, your transportation method has consumed the entire payload. It's a terrible business model.
Exactly. Land transport had massive friction and incredibly low bandwidth. Water transport, however, eliminates that friction.
Because of the barges.
Right. A single barge on a canal powered by wind and a few laborers can move thousands of tons of grain without consuming the payload. Furthermore, if you look at a map of China, almost all the major rivers, like the Yellow River, the Yangtze, they naturally flow from west to east.
Right. They just flow out to the ocean.
Yes. So the geography of the continent was entirely working against north-south integration. Yang Wang's canal was geographically rebellious. He decided to connect those west-east rivers with a massive artificial north-south artery.
It's insane. He dredges new waterways, connects existing ones, and creates a thousands of miles long water highway. He spends trillions in metaphorical capital.
A staggering amount of resources.
And how does he test his new fiber optic network? He builds a fleet of ridiculously luxurious dragon boats, floating palaces.
The optics were not great.
No. He tours the canal with an entourage of thousands, draining his dad's hard-earned savings just to flex on his regional managers.
He certainly had a flair for the dramatic, and his personal extravagance was heavily criticized. But from the purely structural standpoint, the Grand Canal was a brilliant product.
Was it, though?
It permanently integrated the northern and southern economies of China. It was so brilliantly conceived that parts of it are literally still in use today, over 1,000 years later. It solved the ultimate logistical bottleneck.
Okay, hold on. I'm going to push back on that as we sit here. If the product was a unicorn-level genius idea that solved the company's biggest problem, why did it bankrupt the entire regime?
That's a fair question.
Because that sounds like a colossal failure of a product to me.
Well, the product didn't fail. The project management failed. The critical flaw was the timeline. Management made a fatal error in calculating their burn rate.
Ah, they ran out of cash.
Worse. Only they weren't just burning cash, they were burning human lives.
Right. The labor force.
Constructing a project of that magnitude in the ancient world required an unfathomable amount of human labor. They drafted millions of commoners.
Millions.
Men, women, it largely didn't matter. They were working in brutal, unimaginable conditions, essentially hand-digging a river across a continent.
It's the ultimate crunch culture. It's horrible.
It was lethal. Yang Guang was trying to cram 300 years' worth of KPIs into just 30 years.
Wow.
He demanded to see the final polished product in his own lifetime. He didn't want to phase the construction over multiple generations, which is what a project of that scale actually required.
Just pure ego.
It was lethal overexpansion fueled by pure ego. The human costs shattered the basic social contract between the government and the people.
Cramming 300 years of KPIs into 30 years,
Mm-hmm.
that is the exact mechanism of the failure right there.
Yeah.
He is demanding quarterly growth on a millennial infrastructure project.
Exactly.
Okay, so lean in over your drink for this next part, because this is where the CEO drives the company straight off a cliff. You have just built the biggest, most expensive infrastructure project in the history of the world.
At a terrible cost.
Your workforce is physically broken. Your treasury has taken a massive hit. The obvious next move is to let the company rest, right? Let the canal start generating revenue, let the supply lines stabilize.
You certainly do not start a massive, unprovoked foreign war.
Yang Guang looks at the map and does the exact opposite. We are moving into the Goguryeo expansion.
A fatal pivot.
Yang Guang looks at the northeast and sees a powerful new rival. Goguryeo, located in what is now the Korean Peninsula and parts of Manchuria.
Goguryeo was highly formidable. They were organized, heavily fortified, fiercely independent, and they were beginning to exert influence over neighboring tribes.
Which our paranoid CEO sees as a direct threat to his monopoly. He decides we need to acquire that market immediately. So he launches a massive military campaign. And I am not talking about a border skirmish.
Far from it.
We're talking about an army of over 1 million men.
To put that into perspective, an army of 1 million men is a logistical nightmare that even modern militaries struggle with. And remember what we just discussed about land transport.
Oh, wow. Right, the Grand Canal goes north-south. But Goguryeo is in the far northeast. The canal doesn't help them there at all.
Exactly. They had to march over land. The supply lines had to stretch across brutal terrain, entirely negating the high bandwidth benefits of the canal they had just bled the country dry to build.
It's a total strategic mismatch. So he launches the first expedition. And he loses. Utterly routed.
It was a devastating defeat. Hundreds of thousands of casualties. The logistical train just collapsed entirely.
So what does a rational CEO do? Cut your losses, right? Pivot. Yang Guang. He doubles down. He launches a second massive expedition.
With predictable results.
And he loses again.
The winter weather and the overextended supply lines decimated the troops. Goguryeo's defensive tactics were simply too strong to break through a fractured siege.
Does he stop? No. He launches a third expedition. And it ends in a stalemate that effectively amounts to a complete loss.
3 times.
Let me translate this for you into startup terms. The massive Series A funding that his frugal dad hoarded, it is entirely gone.
Burnt to a crisp.
The Grand Canal product is barely in beta testing and hasn't generated a dime of ROI yet. And suddenly the CEO announces to the exhausted, traumatized company, good news. We are simultaneously expanding to Mars, we are attempting a hostile takeover of Apple, and we are completely pivoting to the metaverse. 3 times in a row.
If we step back and look at the macro impact, you really have to look at the employees, the citizens of the Sui dynasty.
The ones paying for all this.
The financial capital was obliterated, but the social capital was entirely negative. The labor force was physically broken.
Yeah.
If a family survived the brutal conscription of digging the canal, their sons were immediately drafted to march thousands of miles to freeze to death in Goguryeo. The phrase in our historical notes, bursting their livers with overtime, is practically an understatement.
It really is.
They were sent to the front line to die for a project with deeply negative returns.
The CEO is so obsessed with his legacy that he has entirely lost touch with the floor workers. He doesn't see them as people. He sees them as expendable units of labor.
And when you push a human workforce past the absolute limit of biological endurance, the inevitable result isn't just a drop in productivity.
No, it's a strike.
It's a violent labor strike. Rebellions started springing up across the empire. It wasn't just a few disgruntled regional managers. It was the entire lower and middle class rising up.
Just a complete revolt.
And their message was unified and clear. The boss is exploiting us to death, and we quit.
We quit, and we are burning down the corporate headquarters on our way out. It is a total systemic failure. The supply lines are dead, the employees are rioting in the streets with pitchforks, and upper management is locked in a boardroom, completely paralyzed by infighting.
Which brings us to the climax of our deep dive, the hostile takeover.
Yes.
This is where opportunism meets extreme preparation.
Enter a man named Li Yuan. If the Sui dynasty is the overarching corporation, Li Yuan is the major shareholder and general manager of a highly strategic regional branch called Taiyuan.
He's a well-positioned insider.
He's got aristocratic lineage, he's got deep military backing, and he is watching the CEO drive the entire industry off a cliff.
Li Yuan sees that the central headquarters in Chang'an is fundamentally undefended and engulfed in chaos. Because, what is the CEO, Yang Wang, doing during this massive labor strike?
Unbelievably. He's literally on a luxury cruise. He abandons the capital, flees south, and rides his dragon boats on his shiny new canal while the empire burns.
It's astounding.
It is the ultimate quiet quitting by a founder.
He retreated into a state of denial, surrounded by sycophants.
So Li Yuan looks at his executive team in Taiwan and says, "Boys, we're going to HQ." He marches his troops straight to Chang'an.
Right into the power vacuum.
And because the existing management structure is so hollowed out by the rebellions and the bankruptcy, Li Yuan executes a flawless, swift, hostile takeover. He deposes the Sui leadership. The Sui startup, after just 38 years, goes totally bankrupt and ceases to exist.
And almost immediately, Li Yuan and his brilliant son, Li Shimin, initiate a total corporate rebrand.
A completely fresh start.
They take the nameplate off the door, throw out Sui, and rename the company the Tang Dynasty. And they IPO.
The Tang Dynasty. Even if you don't study history, you know the Tang Dynasty. It is considered the absolute golden age of Chinese civilization.
No issue.
Art, military expansion, massive economic prosperity.
A global superpower of its era.
But here is the cruelest business irony of this entire late-night chat. Tell them what Tang actually built.
Very little from scratch.
Nothing.
The Tang Dynasty inherited absolutely everything.
Everything.
They stepped into the executive suite and found that the previous management had already done all the painful foundational heavy lifting.
Yep.
Tang inherited the perfectly designed HR systems. That 3 departments and 6 ministries org chart that prevented warlords from rising up.
Just handed to them?
They inherited the imperial examination system, which they used to recruit the absolute best minds for the next 3 centuries. They inherited the massive sealed grain warehouses built by the frugal founder, Yang Jian.
And crucially, they inherited the Grand Canal. Tang Dynasty got to use that massive high-speed fiber optic water network to move their grain and troops effortlessly.
Completely integrating their economy.
Right, without having to pay a single ounce of the catastrophic political and human cost required to actually build it.
Sui was the ultimate trailblazer. They cleared the dark forest, laid down the interstate highways, and built the factories. They provided a massive, invaluable wedding trousseau for their direct rival. And as a reward, they became the shortest-lived shooting star in imperial history, forever branded in the textbooks as a cautionary tale of tyranny and madness.
It is brutal. It is a completely ruthless post-mortem. So what does this all mean for you, sitting here listening to this? I think the surface-level takeaway is pretty clear. Overexpansion and insane, ego-driven KPIs will kill even a monopoly with the best product in the world.
It absolutely will.
You can have the Grand Canal, you can have a unified market, but if you burn out your runway and work your team to death for vanity projects, your general manager from the Taiyuan branch is going to steal your company and put his own name on your legacy.
It's a harsh lesson in the physics of management. You
Yeah,
simply cannot outrun your own supply lines, whether those supply lines are carrying grain, venture capital, or just basic human endurance.
sure.
But since you're finishing your drink, I want to leave you with a final, slightly different thought to mull over.
I'm listening.
We've spent this whole time painting Yang Guang as a delusional disruptor who crashed his company. And we look at the Tang Dynasty as the brilliant, enlightened managers who ushered in a golden age.
Right, that's the standard narrative.
But if the Tang Dynasty achieved its glorious 300-year golden age entirely by standing on the blood, sweat, and bankrupt infrastructure of the Sui Dynasty, does progress actually require a ruthless disruptor to do the dirty work?
Whoa.
Think about it. Digging a canal across a continent was never going to be pleasant, no matter how many centuries you spread it across. It required a level of ruthlessness that good managers are often too ethical or too cautious to attempt.
That is a dark thought.
Can a massive civilization-shifting golden age ever actually exist without a hell-mode, ruthless startup preceding it to break the ground?
That is an uncomfortable question. Did Tang only get to be the good guys because Sui was willing to be the monster?
No.
The line between a civilization builder and a tyrant might just be who gets to write the press release after the IPO.
Something to think about.
Think about that next time you read a headline about a tech billionaire breaking every labor law to colonize a planet by next Tuesday. Thank you for pulling up a stool for this deep dive. Keep questioning the history behind the headlines, watch your burn rate, and we'll see you back here at the bar next time. Good night.